Welcome back, everybody. Our 30th deep dive already.
30.
It's amazing. 30 times we've taken your stacks of sources and, picked them apart for the most interesting bits of information.
That's
And
been a lot of fun.
it has been a lot of fun. And today we're tackling a real classic. And this one was specifically requested.
Excellent.
The Greyhawk Adventure module, Ease the Evil.
It's a great one. What I think is so fascinating about this module is that it's so much more than just an adventure. It's really a deep dive into some serious Greyhawk lore. And it's got some surprising connections to 5th edition D&D today.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because it really is jam-packed with details about Ease himself, his armies, his followers, the land he rules.
Absolutely.
It's really a treasure trove for any DM who is looking to add a little Greyhawk grit into their campaign.
Yeah, and what better place to start than with the land itself?
Okay.
So imagine a place shrouded in perpetual gloom,
Oh, okay.
where the very air feels heavy with malice. That's the land of Ease.
So, not a tourist destination.
That's really, no.
But geographically speaking, what are we talking about here? We're talking about a whole country.
Yeah, whole country. And it's surprisingly diverse geographically. You've got the windswept northern barrens, which are further divided into these really interesting subregions, each with its own kind of unique dangers. Then you have the Felry of Forest,
Okay.
dark and full of twisted creatures. And of course, there's the treacherous Rift Canyon and the imposing Howling Hills.
Okay, so we got a nice mix of bleak landscapes.
It is bleak, yeah.
But how does Euse actually control this land?
Yeah.
Is it all like under his direct rule, or is there some variation?
That's what makes it so interesting for campaign building. Because you're right, some areas are under his iron fist, like the city of Daraka, that's his capital.
Okay.
But other regions are more loosely held, with constant skirmishes and power struggles between different factions, all vying for control.
So you could have like a campaign that was set in the heart of Vidius's empire, dealing with, the machinations of the Boneheart. Or you could have something more frontier style out in these outer territories where things are a bit more Wild West.
Exactly. Yeah, you've got all these different options. And even in those areas under his direct control, right, there are these pockets where Evisa's influence is just like palpable. Like take the Plague Fields, for example.
Okay, the Plague Fields.
Yeah.
That name doesn't exactly inspire confidence.
Right? No.
What are they?
Well, it's a region that's just poisoned and diseased, a consequence of one of Yusa's magical experiments gone wrong.
Oh.
It's really the stark reminder that even a demigod's power can be really unstable and unpredictable.
So he's a threat to everybody, even his own followers.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's not just about Evidius being evil, it's about him being dangerous in this sort of chaotic way. You never know what he's going to do or what kind of disaster he might unleash. Which brings us to his armies. We're not just talking about like a handful of orcs here.
Yeah.
Right?
No. We're talking about a vast, teeming horde of creatures drawn from every corner of the dark side of Greyhawk. Orcs, hobgoblins, goblins, gnolls,
Right.
giants, trolls, you name it. Hughes has probably enslaved it and added it to his ranks.
So how does he even manage to keep all of these different creatures like organized and focused?
Yeah.
Seems like a logistical nightmare.
Well, there's actually a surprising amount of strategy to how these armies are organized.
Okay.
So the orcs, for example, they form like the bulk of his fighting force, but they're divided into all these different tribes,
Okay.
each with its own internal conflicts and rivalries. And Hughes very cleverly uses those divisions to his advantage. He plays them against each other to maintain control.
So divide and conquer even within his own armies.
Exactly.
Clever but brutal. But he doesn't just use orcs, does he?
No, absolutely not. I mean, he's got giants for shock troops, smashing through senses.
Okay.
Goblins are used as scouts and raiders, taking advantage of their sneakiness. And then you have these losels.
Losels? What in the abyss are losels?
They are these horrifying orc-baboon hybrids.
What?
Yeah. Despised and mistreated even by the orcs, they're useful for specific tasks, like because of their enhanced senses, but have abysmal morale.
Okay, that's disturbing. But I can see how they'd be really great for like guarding prisoners.
Yeah.
Where morale doesn't matter as much. But if you're running a 5th edition game, how would you use losels effectively?
I think you really got to lean into their weaknesses.
Okay.
So their low morale makes them very vulnerable to fear effects or clever tactics that exploit their insecurities. So imagine your players infiltrating a prison guarded by losels, and they use illusions or trickery to sow chaos and create an opportunity for escape.
Ooh, that's good. So it's not just about the creature's stats. It's about thinking about how their psychology and their place in Editor's army can create these really interesting encounters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that kind of thinking applies to the whole module. It's
Hmm.
got so much rich detail that can be adapted for a modern campaign.
Speaking of rich detail, let's talk about Ilyus's priesthood. This is where things get really interesting early.
This is where it gets fun.
Yeah.
It's not your typical hierarchical religious structure, right?
Right.
You got the priests, the elite inner circle, and then you have the clerics, who are essentially second-class members, often recruited from conquered lands.
So a tiered system for spreading evil.
Hmm.
But what makes these priests so special? Do they have any unique powers or abilities?
They do. They have access to expanded spell lists and abilities that you wouldn't find in your typical cleric.
Okay, give us some examples. What kind of spells are we talking about here?
Well, there's Black Hand, which counters protection from evil effects. So it's
Huh.
like a magical lockpick, stripping away defenses. Think about how challenging that would be for a party that's relying on those kinds of protections.
Yeah, that would throw a wrench in the works.
Yeah.
No more hiding behind your amulets of protection.
Right.
So what else have they got?
Then there's Turnbane, which shields undead from turning attempts. This is particularly clever because it protects Sirius's undead hordes from paladins and other holy warriors. Imagine the strategic advantage of having undead that can't be turned.
Oh, that's devious. That completely changes the dynamic of a battle against undead. What other tricks do they have up their sleeves?
There are some really flavorful ones like Bone Chain, which lets them create these skeletal guardians from well-dot bones, perfect for ambushes or guarding key locations. And then there's Blood Gloat, which lets a priest siphon power from their kills, turning a battlefield victory into a magical boon.
Brutal. It really emphasizes that ruthlessness of Eurus's priesthood and how easily power corrupts in his service. But some of these spells sound pretty high level.
You're right, many of them are, and that brings us to one of the most fascinating spells in Iris's arsenal, Chain Madness. It's a high-level spell that inflicts contagious insanity.
Contagious insanity. Okay, that's terrifying. How would that even work in a game?
It's perfect for creating chaos and sowing discord among enemies. But here's the thing, it can backfire. The madness can spread uncontrollably, potentially affecting the caster or their allies.
So it's a double-edged sword. A reminder that wielding such powerful magic always comes with a risk. It makes you wonder, are there any priests of Idamuse who would even dare to cast such a spell?
That's a great question, and it leads us perfectly into our next topic, the Boneheart.
Huh.
They're the elite of Idusa's priesthood, the inner circle where ambition and ruthlessness are rewarded.
Yeah.
And trust me, there are definitely those among them who wouldn't hesitate to unleash chain badness.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's talk about the Boneheart.
So the Boneheart, the elite inner circle of Idusa's priesthood, it's divided into the greater and lesser Boneheart.
Okay.
The greater Boneheart, you have figures like Althea.
Okay.
She's this manipulative high priestess. She uses everyone around her as pawns in her schemes.
The classic evil mastermind.
Yeah, classic.
She sounds like somebody you wouldn't want to cross.
No, you wouldn't.
But is she like the most powerful member of the Boneheart?
It's not so clear-cut. While she holds the title of high priestess, there's Helga. He's ruthless, ambitious, always looking to expand and uses power through military might.
So there's a power struggle even at the highest level of the Boneheart.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so that's rife with possibilities for a D&D campaign right there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could have players caught in the middle of their schemes,
Right.
forced to choose sides or play them against each other. And then there's Crimin Mindbender, master of divination and mind control spells, disliked even by his fellow Boneheart.
Mindbender.
Yeah.
Okay, that name alone is enough to make me want to steer clear.
Right.
Why is he so disliked, even among, Iuse's elite?
I think you got to think about it. Even in a group as power-hungry and ruthless as the Boneheart,
Okay.
someone who can control your mind
Yeah.
is going to be viewed with a lot of suspicion.
Right, yeah.
It's a reminder that even among the most depraved, there are lines that some won't cross.
Yeah, I see your point. Trust must be pretty thin on the ground in Iuse's court. What's even more interesting, though, is you mentioned there's a vacancy in the Greater Boneheart.
Yes.
Okay, so...
And this is where things get really exciting for potential campaigns.
Oh.
This power vacuum
Right.
is a powder keg waiting to explode.
Okay.
Imagine your players stumbling into this situation.
Yeah.
Are they going to be tempted by the power grab?
Oh, yeah.
Will they try to influence the outcome? Or will they just get caught in the crossfire?
Possibilities are endless.
Yep.
And it's all tied to this classic module.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how much inspiration you can find in Eye is the Evil for a modern 5th edition game.
That's what I love about it.
Yeah.
It's not just a historical curiosity. It's a
No.
living document. It can be adapted and reinterpreted for today's players. And
Right.
speaking of adaptation,
Yeah.
we've focused a lot on the structure of Ios's power,
Right.
but we can't forget the individuals.
Yeah. You're right. Let's talk about some of those notable NPCs. You mentioned Zenvalin. The priest ruling Crockport had a secret pact with a powerful, fiendish entity. That sounds like a recipe for disaster, or at least a whole lot of trouble for anyone who crosses him.
Oh, Zenvalin's ambition? That's what makes him so dangerous.
Okay.
He's not content with simply ruling Crockport.
Right.
He sees himself rising through the ranks of the Boneheart, maybe even claiming a spot in the Greater Boneheart.
Okay, so we've got ambition, a powerful patron, and now we've got those tomes he found in Crockport, right? The ones detailing the Batezu.
Yes.
It sounds like he's playing a very dangerous game.
Oh, he is. He used those tomes to strike a bargain with a Balor prince.
Wow.
Not quite an abyssal lord, but close.
Okay.
Imagine that. A priest of Eos consorting with a demon prince.
That's crazy.
It really highlights that moral ambiguity of this setting.
Right. This isn't your typical good versus evil scenario.
Right.
It's all about power and who's willing to do what to get it.
Hmm.
This Balor prince, what did Zenvalin promise him?
Information.
Okay.
It's not clear exactly what, but it must have been something valuable to a being like that.
Yeah.
In exchange, Zenvalin can call upon this Balor prince for aid in a single battle.
Talk about a trump card.
I know, right?
A DM could have so much fun with that. Maybe the players have to figure out a way to prevent Zenvalin from using his demonic ally. Or maybe they get caught in the middle of the ensuing chaos when this Balor prince arrives on the battlefield.
That's what's so great about it.
Yeah.
It's a plot hook waiting to happen, and it speaks to the power of Xeneus the Evil to inspire, this creative storytelling.
Yeah, this is reminding me of another interesting figure in the module, Masquelane, that ancient vampire mage. He's like this ancient evil lurking in the shadows.
Oh, yeah.
That feels like a completely different kind of threat. What makes him tick?
Oh, Masquelane is fascinating. He's been around for centuries.
Okay.
He's an exile from the Great Kingdom, and he sees Xeneus' empire as a tool to achieve his own goals.
Okay, so he's not just serving Azines out of loyalty.
No.
He's playing the long game.
Oh, yeah.
But what makes him a good villain for like a 5e campaign?
He embodies that classic gothic horror element that I think can add so much flavor to a game.
Okay.
Imagine your players investigating these strange happenings in a remote village.
Right.
Only to discover that Masquelane is behind it all,
Okay.
using his vampiric powers and influence to manipulate events from the shadows.
You're really making me want to run a Greyhawk campaign. But let's talk about one more character, Panchachek, the elf-hating commander.
Oh, yeah.
What can you tell us about him?
Panchachek embodies the brutality of Eus's regime.
Okay.
He's all about brute force and ruthlessness. He commands the Vesvi armies, and he's been remarkably successful in pushing back against the elves and expanding Eus's territory.
Okay, successful but brutal. What is it about elves that inspires such hatred in him?
It stems from a very personal humiliation. Early in his career, he was captured by wood elves, stripped of everything, and left to die in the forest. He barely survived, and he's carried that grudge ever since, turning it into this cruel vendetta against an entire race.
So he's taking out his personal trauma on an entire people. That's dark, even for a follower of Vesu's. How could you use someone like Panchachek in a campaign?
I think Panchachek is a fantastic recurring villain.
Okay.
Imagine the players thwarting one of his plans.
Yes.
Maybe rescuing a group of elf prisoners or preventing him from claiming some strategically important territory.
Right.
His hatred would only grow, making him even more determined to get revenge.
Right. You could even have him slowly become more and more obsessed with the players, seeing them as the embodiment of everything he hates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He could become this Ahab-like figure driven by his vendetta to the point of madness, which, considering some of those high-level spells we talked about,
Right.
could get very interesting.
All of these characters are so well developed and have so much potential for storytelling.
Yeah.
They're not just names on a page. They feel like real people with real motivations, even if those motivations are twisted and evil.
That's what makes Ius the Evil such a rich resource. It's packed with these incredibly detailed NPCs that can be dropped into any campaign,
Right.
not just one set in Greyhawk.
Let's talk about some of these locations. The Land of Use is more than just bleak landscapes and creepy characters.
Hmm.
It's got some really interesting places that are just begging to be explored.
Absolutely. We've talked about Doraka, his capital,
Right.
and Crockport, but there's also the Rift Canyon,
Okay.
this key strategic area, and a gateway to the Bandit Kingdoms.
So we've got urban intrigue, military importance, and a dash of frontier lawlessness.
Yeah.
It sounds like you could set almost any kind of campaign in the land of easy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a wilderness exploration, there's the Howling Hills,
Okay.
a remote, harsh region
Right.
teeming with giants and trolls.
Sounds like my kind of place. But what about those leering keeps we talked about earlier?
Oh, yeah.
What's the story there?
So that's Riffcrag,
Okay.
ruled by Reglazin Dariag, a half-orc fighter thief. He's actually quite intelligent, at least for an orc.
Yeah.
And he's got this fascinating fascination with the Howling Hills.
Okay.
Imagine him sending the players there to retrieve some ancient artifact or investigate some strange rumors.
I like it. He's not just a mindless brute, he's got his own agenda. But before we get too sidetracked, there's one more location that we can't leave out. The ruined city of Redspan.
Ah, Redspan. It's a chilling reminder of the cost of defying Eos.
Oh, wait.
The defenders committed mass suicide rather than surrender, and now it's haunted by their ghosts.
Oh, wow.
And occupied by both Eos's forces and some superstitious Stonefist orcs.
Talk about atmosphere. You could have a whole section just exploring Redspan, uncovering its tragic history, and facing the ghosts of its past.
And it highlights the psychological impact of Eos's rule.
Yeah.
It's not just about physical conquest.
Right.
It's about breaking the spirit of his enemies,
Right.
which in a way makes him even more terrifying.
It's making me think about the connection between this classic module and 5th edition D&D. It feels like Eyes the Evil offers this blueprint for creating really compelling villains, even in a modern game.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
It's all about giving your villains depth, motivation, and a sense of history.
Right.
It's about making them more than just monsters to be slain.
Right.
It's about making them real.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. We've barely scratched the surface of all the amazing details and characters packed into this classic module.
And the best part is there's
Yeah.
still so much more to explore.
You're right.
We haven't even touched on some of the powerful magical items in Ayuz's realm, or the intricacies of his relationship with other powerful entities in the world of Greyhawk.
You're right. There's a whole other layer to this story that we haven't even begun to unpack.
We haven't even talked about some of the powerful magic items,
So that's right.
like the artifacts
Yes.
crafted for, his most trusted servants. The black staff, we talked about that earlier.
Right.
We got to go into a little more detail on that.
Okay.
And then there's the Ebon Skull.
Ooh, the Ebon Skull.
Yeah. I think we need to dive into that a little bit more.
Yes. What's the deal with the Ebon Skull?
It's a rare item
Okay.
that grants numerous abilities, including animating the dead, immunity to darkness, and even turning good clerics.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty powerful.
It sounds like something that would be very tempting for a player to want to use.
Oh.
But I imagine there's a catch.
Yeah, there's a catch. These artifacts,
Price.
they come with a price.
Okay, what's the price?
Using them attracts a Denise's attention.
Oh,
So.
okay, so you're using this powerful artifact,
Right.
but now you've got this demigod
Exactly.
looking over your shoulder.
Exactly.
So it's like a dangerous gamble for any PC
Right.
who might come across one of these items.
Yeah, you got to think about it. It's not just the immediate benefits of the item, but the long-term consequences of wielding that kind of power.
Right. That's such a good point for players to keep in mind. Because it's like, oh, this is awesome. I've got this powerful item now.
Right.
But you're not thinking about
The downside.
the fact that you've now painted this huge target
Right. Exactly.
on your back.
Yeah, if you're going to wield power like that,
Right.
you better be ready for the attention that comes with it.
This has been such a fascinating conversation. We've barely scratched the surface of all the amazing details and characters packed into this classic module, but it's really been incredible.
It's great to revisit it.
And the best part is, there's still so much more to explore. We didn't even get to touch on everything.
I know. We didn't. It's,
So much good stuff in here.
yeah, we could do another deep dive on this one easily.
We could, and maybe we will sometime. But for now, I think we've covered a lot of really good ground. And a big thank you to all of you out there listening for suggesting this topic. We always love hearing your feedback and suggestions. What do you think? Should we do more Greyhawk deep dives in the future? Let us know in the comments.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what everyone thinks.
And hey, while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, share.
Oh, and ring that bell.
Ring the bell so you don't miss any of our future deep dives. And of course, if you want to explore the source material yourself,
Please do.
check out the link to the EO's the Evil PDF in the video description. Until next time, may your dice rolls be ever in your favor.
And may you never cross paths with the Boneheart Priest.
That's right.